Hello students, today we start a new chapter, chapter number 3, tendering. So in this chapter, first of all we discuss about what is tender, and then after we discuss about the tender form, tender notice, how to invite a tender, then after rejection of the tender, reasons for rejection of the tender. So let's first we start with a definition of the tender. So a tender is an invitation to bid for the project or acceptance of a formal offer such as a takeover bid. And tendering usually refer to process whereby governments and financial institutions invite bid for a large project and must be submitted within a finite deadline. So here if any project is a large project and it is complete within in a time limit, so first honor is make a tender, and then after display in a newspaper or channels or any website, and then after all the contractor fill up the tender, and this tender is a minimum tender is selected with given a specification. So the term also referred to the process whereby shareholders submit their shares of securities in response to takeover offer. A tender is an offer in a writing for executing the certain specified work or for a supplying specified material subject to certain terms and conditions like rate, time limit, etc. So it's another definition of the tender. So it's a tender look like to construct or to prepare any work or to complete any work, or another type of the tender is to supply any material. So there are the two type of the main tender is there. So depending upon the types of the contract, the tender may be lump sum tender, item rate tender, cost plus tender, labor tender, and demolition tender. So these are the different types of the tender. Already we discussed about the contract, so there are the different types of the contract is that same here. Tender is also different type is that. So the tender may be invited by a private owner or a public notice or by negotiation. So the tender may be either open tender or selective tender, or another word is a selected tender. So the open tender is give to all the reputed contractor, and thus the tenderer for the project are received on a competitive basis. In case of the selective tender, the architect after consultation which is done, which is client invite to limited number of the contractor for filling up the tender of the project. So it's one type of the selected tender. Open tender means tender is all the contractor fill up the tender without any interruption. So all the contractor fill up the tender. Now next is a classification of the tender. So here the tender can be grouped into the three categories. First one is open or public tender, second is a selected tender, and third one is a negotiated tender. So in a G2 examination, this type of the question is asked generally like define a tender, or what is tender, classify the tender or classification of the tender, and give or explain any two or three in detail. So here first we discuss on a open or a public tender. So in this type of the tender, any contractor can enter into the competition, and all the formalities of a given opportunity to complete are to be fulfilled, and it is compulsory for a public work, and because of the competition it may result in lowest cost. It means that In a open tender, all the contractor fill up their rates and put or submit the tender to the owner, and the person whose rate is a minimum rate means it's a lowest cost of the tender with given specification given by the owner. So his or her tender is selected, but there are chances of a dispute as a mistake found out at the last stage has to be adjusted. Second type of the tender is a selected tender, or another name is a limited tender. So for this type of the tender, the architect, after the consultation with his client, invite a tender, invite a limited number of the contractor for fill up the tender of any project. Like A grade contractor only fill up the tender. So means it's a one type of the limited or selected tender. So no one extra contractor fill up this tender, and not a extra contractor submit his or her tender. So it result into the competition on a small scale, but it provide to be useful for a specialized and skill work, and it also lead to early success completion of the project, because here competition is very small, because here tender is selected tender, only selected person fill up the tender. And the third one and the last type of the tender is a negotiated tender. So this is the advanced form of the selective tender, and the contractor is given by the negotiation with the one or the most of two contractor. As such, there is no competition in this type of the tender, and hence it may be costly. And but when the work is to be completed in a target time without sacrificing for a quality, and a negotiated tender may be proved to be only alternative. Now most important step is given at here. So the tendering process. So what is tendering process? So tendering process is one type of the process to complete the tender from step 1 to at the last uh, up to the selection of the tender. So here step is given, step 1 to 10 step is given is that. So first step is a NIT. So NIT means, N means notice inviting tender. So this notice is given in the form of the advertisement, post or email, or also put in a website, like it's a government project is that. So government put this tender on a government website, and give the advertisement in a newspaper or a news channel, etc., and also send or post the tender notice to the some of the contractor, and also mail send the notice via mail. Second step is EOI. So EOI is the expression of the interest by the respective bidders. So here some of the contractor make an interest into complete the project work, or give the interest to complete the work, and fill up the tender. So it's called a one type of the expression of interest, it's called a EOI. Next is a tender document, or floating and selling. So here there are the tender document is that, like a tender form, then after rate for rate analysis sheet, etc. is there. Next step 4 is a pre-bidding meeting. So here pre-bid meeting is one type of the meeting between the contractor and owner. Then after step 5 is that a bid submission. So what you prepare for a bidding is submit in a one or two phases is there. So single phase or double phase is there. Next and sixth number step is the bid opening. So here some of the contractor fill up the tender, and after fill up the tender is open, so it's called a bid opening. So in a bid opening is in the form of the single phase or double phase is that. And seventh step is that bid evaluation. So here evaluate the uh, lowest rate with given specification is evaluated. And then after post the bid meeting, in a post the bid meeting means here lowest tender or lowest bid and owner is meet with each other, and report formation is there. And at the last step number 10 is that is a award of the contract. So is a one type of the tender selection, means give the certificate to award for the select the contract. Now next is some important terminology is that. So here important terminology is first one is an EOI. So EOI is nothing but a expression of interest, so often done in a early stage of the procurement process, may be released if the buyer is searching the market for a potential supplier or seeking industry input into the scoping requirements that will be then go back out of the market later on. Second is an RFP, so request for a proposal. RFP is a request for proposal is often to next stage in a procurement process where the buyer goes to market for a solution oriented approaches to the service or product delivery. Third one is RFQ. So RFQ is a request for quote. So it is request to provide the pricing on a product or a service which is generally not asked for the early stage of a procurement, such as a request for information. And next one is the RFT. So the request for a tender on the other scale is to request the really get a proposal on the table around how would design a solution or a delivery a product or a service. But uh, uh, this is usually further into the would you like to do business with such a seeking information about the organizational capability and resources, financially viability, sustainability, principles and value adding. Now next is earliest money deposit. So here earliest money deposit we discuss in a next lecture. So here we stop our topic and lecture. Thank you.